again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal. Three in the face, 1-1. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Yeah, so anyways, fuck Ken Dryden is what I wanted to say.
Not Jay Beagle?
No, Ken Dryden sucks.
I thought that
Jay
was the
Beagle-
whole theme of today's show is fuck Jay Beagle.
No, Jay Beagle's an upstanding citizen. He's never done anything wrong in his life. And I think this persecution and cancel culture is getting out of control.
Goodness.
And I just think it's ridiculous. I'm so sorry. Anyways,
We're back. We are back, and obviously we're going to be talking about Jay Beagle today. Is one of the things. Trevor Zegras, another Michigan goal. This one, probably the best one I've ever seen. Just all the circumstances involved.
of all the 6 that you've seen in your life, that's the best one.
What of all? All the Michigan goals.
That's what I'm saying. How many have there actually been in the NHL though?
Well, not okay.
You've got Svechnikov, 2.
Any of the ones I've ever seen at any level. So
Okay, sure.
dating back to like the first one I saw was Mikael Granlund way back in the World Juniors. This
Sure.
is one of the cleanest ones. With just the way everything kind of led up to it, the between the leg shot to getting your own rebound, the puck's bouncing. I don't know if he got lucky as well because it bounces perfectly in a way it immediately lands like flat onto his stick. There's obviously an insane amount of skill there too. To then pull it around behind the net, fluid motion around your own guy to the net,
Right.
it's just ridiculous. I say this a lot, but Trevor Zegras has a career's worth of highlights in 62 games or so this year. For some guys, right? Like some guys will not have plays like that over 500, 600, 700 games. Where 62 games, a total of 80 plus now, 80, 90 games in his career. He's nearing 100. And it's just unbelievable, the amount of highlights he's put together this year. Everybody loves it, I guess, except Red Wings fans, right?
They hate it.
Could he or will he win? Statistically, he is, out of the forwards, the best rookie in the league.
All right.
Will he win just because of the flashiness? Or should he win just because he's doing stuff like that? Or do you have to take that out of the equation? If you're a voter, because the voting, what you consider in Rookie of the Year, we all just usually assume that it's the guy who has the most points, but there's so many other things that go into it. So what can you include and what can't you include? Because with defensemen, it's always okay, do they have to have a certain amount of points and then they're doing everything else? And with Seider, he's just big, physical. He's been everything you could ask for this year. He puts him near the top. Raymond, Zegras, and Jeanette and Lindell have kind of all in the same points category. But I feel like Zegras is just way, way up here because of everything else he's done and the way he's done it this year. Right? That.
Yeah.
Is that enough to overcome Seider and the points and the fact he's a defenseman?
Well, I feel like so. The question is what do you do with Michael Bunting, right? Because I think that all things considered, Seider and Bunting will end up as 2 of the top 3. The question is going to be, is it going to be Raymond? Is there an outside shot that Lindell sneaks in? Or is it going to be Zegras? And I think it's hard for me to pick anybody but Zegras there because, I would take probably Lundell over Bunting since Bunting is 55 years old and is playing with the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And
two of the best players in the league. He's on. It's not it's just
exactly.
Matthews. It's like a Crosby situation where Sid's carrying. It's Matthews and Marner on that line, and he gets on that top power play unit with those guys, Tavares and Nylander and others, right? So it's just. I think he's my 3 because it still is impressive the
what
jump he's made. Because, like,
Mm-hmm.
guys can get put with great players and it doesn't work out. Like, Nick Ritchie played with Getzlaf and Perry when they were near their peak, and it just didn't work out, right? So, and there's guys that they put with Sid, and it hasn't worked out. So there's credit to Bunting for what he's done. He's been a great player. But for me, like, all those things kind of put him as my number 3, and then it's just between Zegras and Seider, and at that point, I think that's where you get into, like, because it's a defenseman and a forward, is what else are you considering other than just points? Zegras is going to have more points, obviously, but Seider getting anywhere near 50 for a rookie defenseman is very, very impressive. So then you got to look at what else are you leaning into the voting here, and is the flashiness and the highlight reel plays of Zegras enough to kind of outweigh the steadiness and how quickly Seider has become like a physical NHL-ready defenseman? Like, which one outweighs the other?
So I think the interesting thing, like when you're kind of looking at it, right, is like I feel like the argument for Seider is defense is harder, defense takes longer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn to react to the game in front of you, and the skill level is higher, and the speed of the game is higher, right? And so that's the kind of the difficulty level that you're walking into. And you can make the argument that as a forward, you're taking the game to other people, so you at least have a little bit of an advantage in your attacking usually. If you're in the Calder conversation, right? Like nobody who's getting caved in their whole rookie year is going to be in the Calder conversation. So you've got guys who are, playing a more attacking and offensive style usually that gets them into the conversation.
Right.
And it's interesting because I think Seider has pretty much become a number 1 defenseman inside of a year. Like, if you said to me, he's a number 1 defenseman now, but Detroit is going to go grab somebody because they want him to be that without having all of the pressure of that, right? They go out and get like a more experienced kind of 2-3 kind of guy. That would make a lot of sense to me, but I don't think that takes anything away from Seider. And with Zegras, I think like you, it's pretty fair at this point to say he's the team's number 1 center.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's had a really remarkable season. Like other than Troy Terry, I don't think there's another forward on the team who's been quite as impactful. Milano's been really good. Getzlaf is obviously, when healthy, had a bit of a resurgent year this year and doing his classic 3 goals and 30 assists shit. So it's interesting to me that what you've got is 2 players who have both stepped into, high-end roles as rookies. And the thing that I think is the most interesting as far as the flashiness or the highlight stuff is like, you can look at the Buffalo goal to Milano. You can look at the Montreal, Michigan. You can look at this Michigan. You can look at some of the shootout goals, some of the just trick plays that didn't work, some of the passes, and like he's got all that stuff. But you can just as easily look at Seider. He's got the big hits. He's got guys coming to hit him and them falling down.
Yeah. He's
got goals. He's got shifts where he's the only guy with the puck. Like, I think you can very easily argue that they both have close to equivalent highlight reels, given the positions that they play. I think the level of difficulty for me, I would be inclined to go Seider still, just because I just think it's remarkable to do that as a defenseman. But I don't know that there's anybody who can push those 2 for first or second. I think it's pretty comfortably them. Even with, Bunting being the leading goal scorer among rookies. And
he's not anymore.
Really well. Like
he's the leading point getter still, but Raymond actually has 22. Jeanette has 23. So he's up there with points. He's got 53.
Is that how you say that? Tanner Jeanette?
I believe so.
It's not Jeannot?
It might be Jeannot. I don't know if he's French or not. So
I would ask Nashville people.
It's probably Jeannot.
Tanner Jeannot. But still. I think it's between those 2. I got to be honest. It would be super cool to see Jeannot and Lundell finish in that 4-5 range. That would make me really happy. I think, Jeannot's been great as far as 5v5 impact, and he's done all that other stuff, fighting and the hitting, and really just kind of playing a really physical brand of hockey and helping provide some legitimate depth to that team, since they finally have one of Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson playing well.
Do you think there's an outside shout for Jeremy Swayman? 20 wins.
It might be unfair. I think if he was on any other team but the one that had Patrice Bergeron,
right,
he might have a better shot. Like if Spencer Knight was doing what he was doing,
right,
I think there's a very legitimate shot. But I
think he'll get votes. Like Swayman will get votes for the fact that he leads like all rookie goaltenders by a mile in all categories. But yeah, I don't think he'll win.
Like, other than a couple of guys getting 1 or 2 votes here and there, like, is there anybody to vote for outside of that 6?
Yeah, for me, like the guys who are I think are gonna get votes. I think Lindell and Caulfield could potentially get a vote or 2. Maybe not like a first place vote, but like a second or third place vote. Okay. Just because like Caulfield and recency bias, he'll get some votes. Lindell, I think, will get some votes because, again, like this doesn't matter, but people will look at this. The fact he's a plus 30, somebody will look at that and just assume that means like he's miles better than everybody else. Not that he's playing on a significantly better team. He'll be up there. I think he'll get a couple votes because he's done 38 points in only 53 games. I think Jeanette will get some because he's leading rookies in goals. He's got 110 PIMs. He's playing a bit of a different role. I think he'll get some votes there. But for me, like, there's just this clear 4 at the top that are going to – those are really the only guys I think that deserve first place votes. And it's going to be Seider, Zegras, Raymond, and Bunting. Those are going to be my guys. And I think there's a tier there. I think it's Zegras and Seider, and then it's Bunting and Raymond. And I think I would imagine that's how it finishes in the top 4. And
then you think what you're looking at, like Lundell, Swayman,
Caulfield, Jeanette.
I want to know if Boldy gets votes.
He might. I just the amount of games he's played, 35 games. Yeah. It's like, tough.
Yeah, him and Caulfield are interesting because to me that's the 4th tier. Mm-hmm. I would say Jeannot, Swayman, and Lundell are the guys that I would kind of have in that 3rd tier that could sneak into getting 3rd place votes, or could sneak into 3rd place by virtue of getting a significant amount of 3rd place votes. But I think no matter what, there's going to be 1 or 2 guys that are going to get left off that are going to have deserved legitimate looks, and it's kind of cool, to be honest, in a way. And it's easy for me to say that as someone who feels their team's rookie should be in the final 3 regardless. But I definitely think it's cool. Like, I can't remember the last time we had this fun of a rookie race.
Yeah.
And it runs the gamuts from players on the worst team in the league, like Cole Caulfield, to players on the best team in the league, like you could argue Michael Bunting or Anton Lundell, and it's really cool, and I think it's really fun that there really does seem to be a good chunk of young players right now that look ready to start making significant impacts as soon. I mean, you could argue as soon as this year, but as soon as next year for a lot of them, right? Like Boldy is going to be a huge part of that Minnesota team next year, no matter what happens this year, because they have to get guys on ELCs in the door. Anton Lundell, same thing. Like, he's going to be a guy that's going to allow them to kind of have that organizational depth that will help make it easier once, they have to give Huberdeau that new contract, and him and Barkov are making like $22 million between them or something. So it's going to be really interesting. I think there's a lot to be excited for as far as the Calder race is concerned.
Yeah, I think it's very, very close. It's going to come down to the wire, and I hate to say it, I still give a slight edge to Seider, being the defenseman. In fact, he's playing 23 minutes tonight on a bad team. He's just looked exceptional in all areas of the game. It's not that Zegras hasn't. I just think as a defenseman, what he's been able to do is he really hasn't done anything wrong. I know I haven't watched enough Detroit games to see if I'm sure there has been a few defensive blunders this year for a rookie defenseman, like it happens, but it's just really impressive for a guy to step in and do what he's doing. And I think for Zegras to win, I think with 12 games remaining, I think he's got to get to 60, so he's got to get at least 10 points in the next 12 games. I think he's got to get to 20 goals, so he needs at least 3 more goals to get there. If he can get to 20 goals and 60 points, and Seider doesn't scratch 50, he's 6 away from 50 points right now, I think there's a better chance. I still think it's very, very close. I think even right now, with only a 6-point lead, Zegras has a few games in hand. They'll take that into consideration. I think it's very close. It's like 55-45. If Zegras can do that, get to 20 goals, because that's a milestone, get to 60 points, and be a significant gap, at least like a 10-point gap between him and Seider in points, I think he'll take the edge for me going into the voting. But it's going to be tough, because there are going to be people who vote for him just because of the flashiness and everything that he's done this year, and there will be people who won't vote for him because of that too, no matter what the point totals are, because they like Seider's game a bit more. So I think it's going to be really close. It's going to be a really close voting. You just know, the one thing I do know for certain is if Zegras wins, the Red Wings fans are going to say that it was rigged and the NHL wanted Zegras to win. That is a foregone conclusion. That will happen. It's
true. Everybody knows the Anaheim Ducks are the league's favorite team, and they have been getting favorable treatment for 20, what is it now? Almost 30 years? 28, 29 years?
Yeah.
93,
clearly.
94 to 23, 24. So, yeah, we're like 28 years. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's exciting, is that we're going to be able to know, and everybody will know now that we're Gary Bettman's favorite. It makes sense, right? Because Arizona is obviously like the problem child, where it's like, you guys keep giving them a lot of chances and they like kind of keep stealing your car. Like, at a certain point, guys, we got to maybe say this isn't going well. And Detroit is whatever Detroit is. I don't know, dead, old, lame. I mean, the best part of that franchise for a long time was Pat Verbeek, and he's with us now, so fuck them. No, I think, I think every fan base is going to find a way to be pissed off about this, no matter who wins, unless it's their guy. I think that's fine and it's fair. I think the fact that it's this close for a couple of guys is really cool. And I think the fact that the two guys, in my opinion, and your opinion, as you just said, at the top are very different players. They play very different positions. Like, I just think that that's really cool. Yeah. And
it's a different type of race. It's not one of those races where it's like two guys who can get the most points. Whoever finishes with the most points, they're the... Like, if it was no Seider, take him out. If it was between Bunting, Raymond, and Zegras, it'd be basically who gets the most points. And I think Zegras would get the edge because of the flashiness and whatever. But with Seider in the mix, it's like a whole different race, which is fun. It's a bit different from what we've seen. I don't remember the last time we've seen a race where a defenseman and a forward have been so close. Maybe Ekblad. I can't remember who he was against when he won and who he was up against in that year. But it'd be fun to go back and kind of see some of the races and if there was anything like this in recent times. But it's a lot of fun to kind of see the disparity between the two players and ultimately be at a point where you're like, yeah, it's 50-50. It just kind of depends on personal preference at the end of the day and on who's going to get the vote. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So I figured out, by the way, what the hell is behind me. It's because it's World Theater Day, and that's an amphitheater. And I know that because you guys can't see this on the Twitch, but there's a Bing logo here that says World Theater Day. It's a daily image. Anyway, this doesn't matter to anybody, but me and Eddy were talking about it because I was trying to figure out where the hell this picture came from. Anyways, so, I think that's it, right? Nothing else we needed to talk about? Nothing really happened lately?
No, we'll get to it. I do want to say this before we wrap this all up with the Ekblad stuff. He finished just ahead of Goodrow and Mark Stone in that year. I don't know how their seasons looked in their rookie year. So maybe that was a similar race. Obviously, Goodrow and Ekblad are...
Wait, Johnny G?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't remember Johnny Goodrow's rookie season. But now I have to see because he just finished.
He would have been, 24? Because he played 3-4 years in college?
Yeah, so he had 64 points in 80 games. So it is a fairly similar...
good for him.
Yeah, fairly similar race.
How old was he?
I have no idea.
Just go to Hockey Reference, dude.
I'm trying to do math. He's 28 now. He's been like 21, so same age as Zegras.
Shut up. I'm just gonna shut up. I'm looking. Yeah, he was 21. Yeah, he played one game at 20 years old.
Yeah.
He had one game, one goal, +1.
Yeah, he came in at the end. He came at the end of the
percentage.
season. It was like the last game of the season. He came in the last game and scored a goal, and then came out the next year and just popped off for 64 points. So it's a similar race.
How do you have 2 total? Wait, what's TSA? Total shot attempts?
I think so.
Oh, team shot attempts is probably what it is.
Yeah.
So there was 2 shots when he was on the ice. He had one of them, and it was a goal, and that was in 15 minutes. Oh, he had a takeaway and no giveaways. Wow, dude, he should have won the 13-14 Calder. What are we talking about? He was a stud.
Yeah, if we go by per game numbers, projections.
Incredible. Greatest hockey player of all time.
All right, let's get to the other topics we have here. So, Ducks currently sit 6th in the Pacific Division. 11-game losing streak ended on Friday with the win against Arizona Coyotes. You felt like if you can't beat Arizona and it goes to 12, they might not win another game this year with some of the teams they have to go against, like Edmonton tonight. So it was nice to get that over with, and in convincing fashion, I think too is important to build some confidence. You know, the top line with Zegras, Milano, and Terry got going. So there is something to do that. I mean, they could wipe that all off the board tonight if they just get absolutely obliterated by Edmonton and lose that confidence. But it was nice to see them snap the losing streak for a lot of guys to kind of get going for that line. I guess it's a new look line of Milano, Zegras, and Terry over the last game and a half, as they looked excellent in that game. And they kind of have to, because the top scorers for the Ducks over the last 7 games or so have been Zegras and Terry. And then Derek Grant is in that mix because he was on the top line with the 2 of them. So
can't just be that he's a good hockey player. Can't just be. No.
Can't.
Because he was getting carried. When Derek Grant was walking on the beach and there was only one set of footsteps, it's because he was carried by Trevor Zegras.
But Zegras shows out with the Michigan goal, like we talked about. We can cover that a little bit. We briefly we were gonna cover that at the beginning of the show, and then we got warped into Calder talk for 20 minutes. That wasn't even part of the show to begin with. I love it, but what did you think about that goal? I mean, obviously amazing.
So, I missed the first 3 goals in real time. Right. So all of a sudden, I look down and it's like, Lundestrom scores 1-0, and I'm like, yeah. And then it's like, Mayhew scores 2-0, and I was like, oh shit, this game's like really good right now. What is happening? And then it was all of a sudden, holy shit, Trevor Zegras did it again, and I went into full panic mode.
Yeah,
like I was
where's my phone?
Finish a movie with my girlfriend. You know, she I had to take her to the airport yesterday morning, so like Friday night we were just kind of trying to hang out a little bit before she left, and I felt so bad for her because we're sitting there trying to watch this movie, and I'm just like frantically on Twitter, like, what the fuck just happened? And then I find it, and then I just show her the still of him around Milano.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it rocked, man. It was incredible, and like you said, like it was cool the way it developed, because he went for the between the leg shot and it bounced down right in front of him. And to your question, as far as like, is it skill, is it luck? It's like it's both things. Those 2 things.
Yeah.
I don't think you can separate those 2 things, right? Because if you're not good, you can't make your own luck. You're not going to be aware enough or skilled enough or just aware or skilled enough to be able to take advantage of weird bounces like that. Because if he would have popped it that way, it wouldn't have worked, and he would have just rimmed it around the boards to the right point, nobody would have been upset about it. That would have been a perfectly legitimate
99% of the guys in the league. Pretty much everybody right now, other than Trevor Zegras, that's what they do. Is they throw it along the boards.
Maybe they go behind the net and they have it on their backhand or something like that, right? Yeah. Like, he's got those 2 options, and you can either way, no big deal. But for him to see that and almost immediately be like, oh, and then and you're just like, holy shit, dude, how did you? It's remarkable, and
it's a whole nother level of thinking that I don't like. I'm not saying I'm gonna put out there that he's the smartest hockey player in the game, because he's not. But or I don't have the evidence to say that he is, but that play developed the moment, like in the moment for him. It wasn't drawn up. It wasn't something like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like I tried it between the leg shot because that was the only way I was going to get a good shot off. Okay, falls at my stick. All right, I'm going to pick it up, and the goalie's out of position, and I'm going to, Milano's in the way. I'm just going to stretch a little bit around him. Like, it's unbelievable to be able to pull that off in real time. Like, that's the one thing I can't believe. Like, I can understand being behind the net, having a little bit of time, assessing the play, and like, okay, now I'm going to pull the Michigan, and that takes an immense amount of skill to do that, like his first one. This one is just, like, the split-second decision-making, then the skill to be able to pull it off in that split-second moment is, I don't think there's many guys in the league that can do that and would do that.
Yeah, I think it's a completely different type of thinking. It's, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to say it that's not like super cliche and stupid, but like it really just is like completely like out of the box type shit, right? It's like everybody's a left brain guy, and he's one of 4 or 5 right brain guys out there. And for everybody who actually knows which one is which, I'm sorry, I don't know. But one of those is, you know, analytical, and the other one's a little bit more creative and whatever. But I just think for him, he just doesn't go into situations the same way. And I think his ability to just kind of change the calculus on the fly of what is or isn't what is or isn't like possible, right? Like what he can or can't do. Like
right.
He just completely approaches situations different than other guys. And that is the part of it that makes him special, is he's got this incredibly high skill level that he is combining with a remarkably unique approach to how to play the game and to what he can do with that skill set, right? Like, this is part of the conversation we'll have and whenever, but like, I don't think he's doing this stuff just to do this stuff.
No.
He just doesn't see limitations in the way the other guys do, right? It's some real, you know, Neo at the end of the Matrix shit, where he's like, oh, I see all the code, so now I can exploit that to do whatever I want. And part of that is, even though it's me, and even though people still know, they don't seem to think in real time, oh, he's going to Michigan.
Yeah.
So he's just, fuck it, let's go. You know, and I think looking at this one and looking at the Montreal one and the ways in which they are semi-similar but also completely different is incredibly enlightening, because the Montreal one, he's coming down the right side and he just picks it up in one move, just super clean, just absolutely fluid, and it is his speed around the net that and his fluidity that creates the opportunity. Whereas with the one against Arizona, it's his reaction, right? Like you said, is he tries this one play, the puck just bounces in front of him, and all of a sudden he just goes whoop, and he's like, oh, I can just do this now. He's not like, oh, I got to embarrass this guy because he thought he could block my little between the leg shot. He's just like, this is the next thing.
This is the best chance for him to score in that moment was to do that.
In his eyes was that, absolutely.
Yeah. That's what sets it apart, I think, from other guys maybe doing it or like you thinking that it's like for him, he has a tool set that he's well aware of what he can do. There's the confidence there to, no matter the moment, to pull it off. There are guys in this league who can do that. Like, he's not the only guy who can do that. He's Absolutely. The only guy, I think, that will block out the rest of the sun of, this isn't a good time to do this play. What am I going to do if I hear it from the coach if this happens at this moment? It's just this right here in this moment is the best play to give us a chance to score a goal. And I love that, because it shouldn't be, I'm going to do this to embarrass this guy, because that's when it doesn't work, because then you start looking to find moments to do that where it's not the best moment to do it. He does it in a moment, in a split second, where he's made the decision that this is the best way I'm going to score the goal. And I think what makes it so deceptive is just that, right? Is that nobody knows he's going to do it until he knows he's going to do it, right? It's just like there's no planning. Like from what we saw leading into the season before anybody else had done in Michigan, it was okay. Svechkov, for example, I am parked behind the net for 5 minutes. And then I have a really kind of slow lead up. I put my stick over the puck, and everybody knows it's coming the moment that happens. You get a defenseman who moves in and starts slashing the stick. Like, both of the goals he scored this year, the one against Montreal was a bit more traditional, if you want to call it that, but it was still, like, fluidity. Like, he was skating behind the net, he picked it up in a split second, and it was in the back of the net. In this one, like, it was as quick as you can ever get a Michigan off. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it was off the shot, the puck bounced onto his stick, and immediately he has it on the blade, scooping it into the top corner. Like, there is no way to defend that. Like, you literally just cannot defend that and look for that to happen, which is what I think sets it apart from anybody else who has pulled that off or attempted to do it. It's just the deceptiveness of like, in the moment he decided to do that and it happened. There was no...
Yeah, exactly. It's not even deceptiveness, it's spontaneity, right? Yeah. It's there is no tell. Exactly like you said, right? Even the pass to Milano, right? He manipulates the tell by, he picks it up and then he's like, oh, and so he pops it over the top. He wasn't trying to do that. Milano even said in the thing, Milano was yelling at him, do the Michigan, not pass it over the top, do the Michigan. And he just gets to hear and he sees something else. Like, again, if you take the 10 guys in the league that have the combination of skill and fearlessness to try that play, and you give them all 100 chances, 5 out of those maybe is someone going to think, oh, I can go over the top of the net. I can go vertical.
I don't even think there's that many. Like,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm like. It's just...
And to block everything else out. Like that, and you got to give... I would assume you got to give Dallas Eakins credit for that, in a sense, to know that, like, if that fucked up, he's not going to go back to the bench and get screamed at by Daryl Sutter or whoever, right? Like, there is something to that, but the ability to just kind of block everything else out, to not worry about if it's going to mess up, to not worry about if what the consequences are going to be after that play. Like, he's confident enough that he believes that is the best play in that moment that's going to lead to a goal, and 3 times it has, and there haven't been too many times where he's attempted something ridiculous like that and it hasn't panned out, right? Like, there hasn't been a flip over the net. I think he had one where he tried to do it again and it didn't work.
I think Milano tried to do it.
Oh, yeah, Milano did it, yeah. But, so, like, that's the thing, too. That's why you can't even get mad, because it's not like he's just doing this just to do it to show off. Right. Like, that's we've seen guys do that in the past where they'll try these flashy things to just do them. They're not the best moment to do it. Like, you can see that with Zegras, is like, he only pulls it out when, like, in his mind, there's a very good chance it's going to pay off. And it has so far. So you got to give him credit for that it in the times that he's chosen to do it, it looked great. It's amazing. It's fun to watch, but it's panned out. It's played out. It's paid off for attempting that. And that's all you want. Like, I want to see him do it when it's going to pay off. And that's the thing that's more spectacular about it. 'Cause you get to this gaudy, like, attempting to just be skillful because you're a creative player type thing, when you're just doing it all the time and it's leading to a turnover or it's not paying off or whatever. And we just really haven't seen that happen. Like, he just knows the time to use that skill to his advantage.
Yeah, I think you can go back through the season and find different examples of him. I want to say this carefully. You could argue that he is making overly complicated plays. Like, I remember watching earlier in the season, and I think I tweeted it out, but, like, it was one of those things where, like, he tried something, and I watched him try it, and it didn't work. And the comment I had was, he's going to go back to the bench, and Dallas Eakins is going to walk over to him, place his hand on his shoulder, and just say, keep it simple. That's it. Not scold him, not yell at him, not... what the fuck are you doing? You can't, you're going to get cross-checked in the face. If you keep this shit up, you're going to set guys off. You're not making job. It's just simple. Like, hey, we're getting there. And, to your credit, like, we've said before, like, I think that is one of the areas in which Dallas Eakins clearly deserves some credit, is fostering an environment in which these players feel comfortable trying these kinds of things. And obviously Zegras is a very special talent in a very special circumstance as far as what he means to the franchise and all this different kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is like, there's a lot of guys who, if they tried that, their coach would lose their shit.
Yeah.
And rightly or wrongly, that would be the reaction. And for Akins, it's just kind of like, like if it's there, go for it. I don't want to discourage you from being creative. I don't want to discourage you from being dynamic, but just don't do it all the time. And we've seen a couple of times where he should shoot, and instead he makes one of those spinning, those spinning passes, or maybe you could argue he's got an easier backhand and he goes for between the legs and stuff, but he's not trying to be the Harlem Globetrotters. Mm-hmm. He's trying to be the Golden State Warriors, right? Like there's a fundamental difference between I'm doing this for entertainment and I'm doing this to win because I can do it.
Yeah. And he's a rookie. He's 21. Like, these are things where, like, he can pull it off, and he's doing it in situations where it pans out. And those little things like that where it's like, okay, like, in this instance, keep it simple. Like, he's a player that's still learning, which is scary for other teams, that you get to a point where he's a smart enough hockey player that once you start getting the reps in and you start, feeling out these moments and getting used to them, and they become kind of repetitive and similar, you kind of know what moments to use those in, where it's like, oh God, like he's just going to get to a point where, okay, I know exactly what to do in this moment. It's not what I did, 20, 30, 40, 50 games ago. Now I know, like, this play here, keep it simple, cross it through the seam right to a guy back post into the back of the net. I don't need to do the spin pass here. I don't need to do anything fancy. I don't need to drop it back. Like, this is the play. So that's what you love to see, and that's great. And you've already said, you got to give Dallas Eakins credit for that, and not hampering him and saying, listen, you can't do that. No, just keep it simple. In that moment, keep it simple. Next time, whatever, try it again. Keep it simple, and we'll go from there. And that, I think that's scary for his future development, to get to a point where we already know he can pull this off because he's doing that now, but to get to a decision-making point where, okay, I know in this moment I don't have to do that, which is scary.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Like that's fundamental. Like, again, sounds stupid. You're welcome, Shane. But like, fundamentally, that's what experiences is just data entry, right? You're just building up these things, so the first time you go down the board and you're like, oh, I think I can pull an outside in move here. And then you get fucking obliterated. And you're like, okay, that didn't work. Did I go too slow? Did I go too fast? Did I not have the space I had? You're learning. So the second time you go to try it and you pull it off, you're like, okay, now I see what was different. And then you keep doing it. And now all of a sudden, second, third, fourth year of your career, that same situation is, and you're like, okay, he's there. I've been here before. I know how much space I have. I know how quick this guy is. Like, I know what I'm doing. And you can make the best possible decision based on the individual circumstance. That is, and that ability to make the best decision is that intensified or magnified by the skill to make the play in a unique way, right? Because again, the spinning pass, it's a cross-ice pass, right? That's all it is. You're just trying to go from one side of the ice to the other, force the goalie to get moving, hope the puck gets there faster, your guy finishes it off. That's all. It's the same shit. There's no difference.
Just a layer of like simply being deceptive or to throw people off or whatever.
It's again, like, it's equivalent to like a step back. It's just adding in a layer that changes changes the calculus for the defender of what it is that is happening. And we've seen guys on his team not be ready for it. And we've seen guys on his team have been ready for it. That's also part of that experience, right? Because like we've been saying, there's a level of spontaneity to what Zegras is doing that catches everybody off guard. So the more guys play with him, the more comfortable they're going to be playing with him, the more they'll be able to anticipate a little bit what he's going to do. And that's, like you said, that's the part of it that is scary, is he's only going to get better. He's only going to get smarter. He's only going to have more experience and more confidence. And I mean, shit, it already feels like the game's moving in bullet time for him. You know what I mean? Like, the game's going to get slower for him.
Well, he's going to start to
insane.
recognize, tendencies of opponents that he goes against often, and how to exploit their weaknesses. And like, this is a kid, I don't know, every player does this, but every time you see him head to the bench after a play that didn't work, he's got the iPad, he's sitting there analyzing the play, figuring out what he did wrong, what didn't work, and then taking that into the next time he gets into that situation and doing something different, and adjusting his play for that. So it's something that, it's scary for other teams, exciting for us, that over the next couple seasons, as he starts to figure out some of the top defenders in the game and how to kind of utilize some of these opportunities, getting in the spaces and kind of manipulate those spaces better than he has been, that he'll just get into this area where it's like, no matter what, he's making the top tier play and the right play in that situation. He's got the skill already to pull it off, right? And that's the thing, that like, there are rookies that come into this league and have a great year, and they're like, okay, the sophomore slump was always a thing because other teams figured them out and how to stop them. He's got this level to him of creativity where he will do anything, and a lot of things that you haven't seen, where I just don't see that coming. And sure, he could get proven wrong next year, but it's like, there's just a air to him that won't happen, right? Like, he'll get into next season and you won't know how to stop him because you don't know what's coming. A lot of guys have a move, a way they kind of, a way they're comfortable entering the zone with, and way they set up and where they go. And for a lot of rookies, like, until they get their reps in, like, they're set into kind of this comfortable way of playing. Like, he plays, it's maybe not the best way to say it, but he like plays in an uncomfortable way, in the sense that like, he
with
just
a freedom,
he just does anything in the moment, whatever he thinks is the best play. There's no set move or set kind of rhythm to the way he plays. It's just kind of controlled chaos where he'll do whatever works in that moment, and very, very difficult to defend against. And it's why, as a rookie in this league, he's been made a lot of guys look ridiculous, because you don't know what to expect. Like, he's the first one who's going to know, and it's usually in the moment. And then you've got to just as quick to analyze what he's doing and figure it out, or he's already passed you.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, you look at a player like Jack Hughes, right? And Jack Hughes has been a very good player his entire time in the NHL. He hasn't had the on-ice success or the on-ice numbers or things like that at certain times, and the team has struggled and yada, yada, yada. But, like, anybody watch Jack Hughes, you're like, yeah, this kid's really good. And this year, we're seeing what that 2-3 years of him learning was. Like, this is the result of that. That's why when he signs an 8x8, everybody's like, yeah, 100%. Why wouldn't you? That's just who he is. Yeah. And his numbers may or may not have been there before, and his impact may or may not, but like, it's just the reps that he's learning, and he's just going to continue to get better. He's incredibly skilled. I don't want this in any way to feel like I'm trying to diminish Jack Hughes or anything like that, because his game is just different stylistically. The thing about it that sets Zegras apart is that spontaneity and that creativity, which just, again, like, it just changes the calculus of the way people react to him, because it's one thing to be like a defenseman, right? You're like a veteran defenseman. You're watching this kid come down the right, and you're like, all right, like, he can dump it. He can try to move it inside out, blah, blah, blah. So let's see what he does. You see, he kind of tries to make his move. You're ready. You react. Maybe you get beat. Maybe you don't. But you could see what was happening, right? You could see it coming towards you, and it's just about your ability to stop it. I don't know how you're supposed to see this kid on the right side of the ice making this insane spinning pass that ends up leading the guy he's passing it to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's not really a way to see that coming. And so it just gives him a couple extra seconds here, or, half seconds here. It gives him a little bit of extra space, right? He can create space. He can create time by just sheer ridiculousness in a way. So, again, like, as he continues to get those reps in, as he continues to just play more hockey at this level and see the way guys are, He's just gonna get better, and it's insane that he has been as good as he's been this year, and everybody's still like, this isn't even close.
Yeah.
Like, he is gonna be better than this, you know. Like, and again, first year, so this kind of gets dicey or whatever. But like, you know, I think one of the things that kind of in my head I use to kind of differentiate where different players are at is awards. And I know that sounds silly because some of it can be narrative based and market based and all this other stuff. And we were just talking about bunting and being 55 years old and all that shit.
Yeah.
But Trevor Zegras is the first guy that I've seen join this team's in 15 years that I'm like, oh, he could win a Hart Trophy. Like, he could win a Hart Trophy because for the same reason he could win the Calder this year, he's going to have highlight plays, he's going to have raw numbers, and he is clearly impactful. And again, we can get to this down the line, but I think that's what's so frustrating about some of the conversation from some of the idiots around the Jay Beagle thing is he's not going, this isn't and one. He's not going out there with the intent of, I'm going to embarrass you 4 times and then I'm going to make a layup.
Yeah.
Right? This is, I am going to beat you the best way that I can right now, and it's going to look cool. And that's just because I can. It's not because I'm choosing to do this to you. This is the best way right now for me to have the impact that I want.
You let this happen. Like you
Yeah.
gave me this space. You allowed me to do this. Like that, and we'll might as well transition to it because we got to get to it at some point. Is the whole Jay Beagle thing. Though I want to kick it off to kind of marry the two topics together. One of the things, I think it was, Tyson Nash?
Tyson Nash.
One of the things that he said that a lot of people keyed in on was like, if you're going to do this, you're going to pull these...
Skill it up.
Yeah, skill it up and pull off these plays, expect to get punched in the face. Well, stop him. Like, your whole job out there is to stop him from doing this as an opposing team. Like, don't let it happen. Don't put yourself in a position to let it happen. You want him to not do that play? Like, he scored off of it. Like, you want them to not pull off these plays? If you don't want to lose 5-0, don't put yourself in a position to lose 5-0. Doesn't mean you have to go out there and you know, punch a guy or, you know, jump Terry like Beagle did because you're losing 5-0 to a team that, you know, pulled the Michigan off on you and is on an 11-game losing streak. Like, you don't want to be put in that position. Don't put yourself in that position. You know, don't put it on the skill guy for doing that to you, and he deserves this because he did this to you. If anything, you deserve it to happen to you because you let it happen. Like, nobody. It's not his fault that he did this. It was the best play to pull off in that situation. It fucking worked. He scored. You shouldn't have let it happen. Somebody should be getting screamed at on the bench. I know it's very hard to stop that play the way he pulled it off, but that should not happen. It's not on Trevor Zegras for pulling off a skilled play. And, you know, listen, I'm sure Nash regrets saying it with all the controversy that's come from. Man, I don't know. I heard he was praising Zegras beforehand for the skill. Maybe it didn't come across as well. Again, you're a homer on your home broadcast. You get into it, you get heated, you take a side, and it doesn't look great for you publicly at the end of the day. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt. It was a dumb remark, distasteful in the moment when a guy is down on the ice and hurt, and then to take the old school approach that it's clearly not worked out for a lot of people this year and say it's because a guy was being skillful and fun and exciting to watch, that if you play like that, you should expect to get punched in the face. You should know that that's going to backfire. Like, that is obvious in that moment. But I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's hard.
Here's the thing for me, because when Zegras made the Milano pass, Rick Tocchet went on TV on TNT and said, I would not like to think about how I would have reacted to that. Like, I don't know, that, I would have handled that well. I would have tried to kill that kid. And everybody lost their mind. And my thing was like, I get what Tocchet is saying. If you're going to try this slick shit, people are going to try to stop you. There is going to be physical attempts at deterring you, right? Whether that's not even aiming for your stick the next time they see you start and just hacking you on the leg, right? Or if it's giving you a cross check the next time you're in front of the net or something like that. That's not what happened yesterday or Friday night. And that's the thing about this that has been bothering me, and specifically with what Tyson Nash said. I don't even necessarily disagree with the idea of like, yo, if you're going to scale it up and you're going to be out here embarrassing some of these guys, they're not going to handle this well. And some of these guys are lesser players. They're going to have the lizard part of their brain kick in, and they're going to pop you. Like, okay, man, like, I get that that's still part of the game. That's still, one of those things. Like, pick your favorite defenseman above 6'1", and we can all go find a clip of them cross-checking someone in the back in the crease when they're laying down. I got, I don't want to overblow that whole part of it. The part that Jay Beagle did that is the problem is he immediately threw his gloves off and started popping a 24-year-old kid who was never going to fight him.
Yep.
Was never going to fight him. Just right in the face. Like, it wasn't even close, dude. He just threw him off, grabbed that jersey, and just started going for it. And that's the thing about it that is frustrating is Trevor Terry didn't do that shit. Trevor Zegras did. So the cross-check that Troy Terry was responding to, honestly, I'm not even tripping. That happens. You're going to go to the front of the net. You're going to poke at the goalie's glove. This is what's going to happen. Whether, whether it was covered up or whether it was loose. If you poke the goalie's glove, someone is going to hit you. Whether it's a tap, whether it's a bunny punch, whether it's a face wash, whether it's a cross check, like these things are going to happen. They're an inevitability in a certain sense when you're looking at a game that combines speed and skill and physicality in the way that hockey does. What Jay Beagle did was take advantage of a kid, man. Like, Jay Beagle should fucking know better. That's the part of this that is so frustrating for me. Is Jay Beagle's been around for a long time. He's been a part of teams that have had success. He was on that Capitals team that won the Stanley Cup. Like, he has been an impactful depth player, for legitimate teams, whether that's kind of him being like a lesser of a Casey Cizikas type where he's like, oh, damn, dude, he just might be one of the best bottom six centers in the league or whatever. He's been there. And I think, you contrast that with what Louis Eriksson did in that moment.
Yeah. The right thing.
The moment everything broke out, Louis Eriksson, you can watch the clip. He goes straight to Trevor Zegras, grabs him all the way around from behind, and it is explicitly just to keep him from making a mistake, which is going and fighting Jay Beagle.
Yep.
Because Trevor and Cam were both ready to go fight Jay Beagle for what he did to Troy Terry.
Yep.
I have never seen Cam like that. I have never seen Cam lose his shit like that. He lost it. And I loved so much to see Cam that emotionally volatile, I guess, because that to me is him very much understanding his role on this team now. He is one of the last real long-term veterans on this team. He's been there since the beginning of it all. He went through all of the ups and all of the downs, and now he's on this team, and it looks like when this team is coming out of it, he's going to be around and he's going to be part of it. And so, he's taking care of these kids in the way that he can. Again, he's not overly physical. He's not going to really go fight guys, but apparently he will now because he would have, even if he would have lost, I know he was ready to go fight Jay Beagle over that shit.
Yep.
Same thing with Trevor Zegras. And you see Louis Eriksson grab Trevor Zegras and just be like, don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't do it. This isn't what you want to be. Stay away from it. And he, and Trevor's doing the whole pushing his arms off of him thing and fucking just yelling at him. And Cam is yelling at Jay Beagle and everybody's going wild. And then Tyson Nash says this stupid shit. If you want to skill it up, you're going to have to prepare for this. And like I said, that's not what happened. That's the problem for me. This wasn't Jay Beagle reacting to skill. This was Jay Beagle shitting his pants on national TV because they were losing 5-0,
Yeah.
and he knew
Boiled
exactly
over.
who it was who jumped on his back. He knew exactly who it was because the moment he turns around, those gloves are off. You can see it. He fucking turns around, he grabs him, throws his gloves off, he starts going. Troy Terry never tries to drop his gloves, never tries to throw a punch. All these fucking idiots online who are like, "Oh, he threw a gloved right." No, dude, he
was in a
isn't the
regular
tallest
scrum.
kid.
He
He
held
is not.
him. They broke out of a
He
scrum.
tried to go over his back to grab him. We've seen people do this
Yeah.
for 100 fucking years in professional hockey. Like, we don't have to lie about what the fuck this is, man. You go into a scrum, yeah, sometimes it goes bad, right? Like, that stuff happens. People get out of hand. Part of being a veteran in this game is knowing these kinds of things, and I've said it to you a couple times off show, but like, because the conversation about deterrents and enforcers and all of that, and we'll get to that.
Yeah,
but like,
we'll get to that one.
the thing for me is like, I think I said this to you, that like, I think the fact that it seems genuinely justifiable to say it didn't matter what the scoreline was or who was on the Ducks, Jay Beagle was going to do that. To me, that is a fucking insane indictment of Jay Beagle's character. Because the idea that you are going to take advantage of a young, skilled player in a game like that simply for being young and skilled and being on the other team is embarrassing.
Yep.
Like I said it to you, Ryan Reeves never does that. He's not going to do that. Ryan Reeves, as much as people do or don't believe in it, there is a rough code or ethical concept and construct around the way some of these things happen. You are always going to have players who operate outside the rules of that. And that is why so many people were so angry Friday night that Delorier wasn't there, that Manson wasn't there, that even Ryan Getzlaf wasn't there, because there wasn't anybody to either prevent it, in the idea that maybe Jay Beagle doesn't do that if he knows someone is there who's going to beat the shit out of him for it, or he knows that somebody's going to go run Clayton Keller, or Clayton Keller's not in the game, so like Chikrin's the guy, but like, that's a real, like, somebody could go run Jacob Chikrin because of what Jay Beagle did. And now Jay Beagle has to go sit there and look at Jacob Chikrin and be like, damn, I know you're really good and I suck, but sorry, buddy, I had to pop this 24-year-old kid in the face. What was I going to do? Not punch him? Like, it's just embarrassing to me. And to not have someone around, like, and you made the point about, like, Sam Carrick was there, and, like, Sam Carrick was already in the box, and he had kind of been in a fight and like, that fight pissed me off because the ref very clearly went in and stopped Sam Carrick from doing it, but didn't stop the other guy from doing anything. Like, the other guy popped Sam Carrick multiple times, and Sam Carrick could not get out from under the linesman. If you're going to break up a fight, break it up. Stop the fight. You know what I mean? Either let him fight or stop it. You cannot go in and just grab one guy and let him get swung on.
So, like, my whole thing about this is the circumstances you are in at that game. If that moment is replayed 1,000 times, I don't care who's on the bench, that is happening. That is my whole thing for this. Like, listen, I get the deterrent factor. Like, we had a whole argument about this with us and Pat and Jason in the podcast chat. I get when you start a game, if Delorier is on the bench, some guys will think twice in certain moments about doing things. I don't think anything happens early. Like, I don't think anybody gets run if you necessarily have a guy and you know that this guy will come after you or one of your stars. I think that's a thing. I think it can happen. My problem with this moment is cherry picking this individual moment and saying, this is why we need an enforcer. I don't think that applies.
You think that's disingenuous?
Because you're down 5-0. You're at home. You got dunked on by a 21-year-old kid. There was just a fight before this. You're losing this bad to a team that just rattled off 11 straight losses, and you are one of the worst teams in the league, just getting absolutely embarrassed. And then you've got a moment where things had already boiled over before. You've got now a scrum that's starting in front of the net. Troy Terry digs at the goaltender. It warrants not that, but it warrants, a little scuffle, pushing, whatever, like normal things after you kind of go a little bit too far with the goaltender. And Beagle, with the other emotions boiling over, took it way too far to a level that it's not acceptable, where he just felt like, all right, I'm going to unload on this kid in this moment. I don't think he even thought in the moment who's on the bench. I don't think if Deslauriers is there, that changes. He does that. He does not care. I don't think you could have Ryan Reeves, you could have Deslauriers, you could have all the enforcers you want on the Ducks bench at that moment. I think Jay Beagle still does that. Which, like you said, it's a real indictment of his character in that moment. He boiled over to a point where he did something ridiculously stupid that shouldn't have happened. But this whole thing, this doesn't happen if Deslauriers is there. That's what bothers me, because then we're starting to kind of overplay the role of enforcers in that moment. And to say, oh, you need him there to go and make a retaliation play after that, I don't think you have to. Beagle is done for the game. You've got a 5-minute power play in a game. You're up 5-0 with basically the rest of the time you're going to be on the power play for the rest of that game. I don't think to say you needed Deslauriers to go out there and now you need to retaliate by going after one of their young kids, that's hypocritical to me. We talked about this a little bit before the show. If you as a fan do not like what Jay Beagle did to Troy Terry, you cannot sit there and say, oh, we need Des to then go fuck up Clayton Keller or whoever the young player is on the ice.
Right.
Because you're just contradicting yourself. If you don't like that happen to Troy Terry, you can't expect that and be okay with that happening to another young, unsuspecting player on another team. Because it shouldn't happen. This Jay Beagle situation shouldn't happen, and any retribution beyond that shouldn't happen. If you want to say next time they play, or if there was more time, that somebody's going to go fuck up Jay Beagle or one of their tough guys who is used to this and is their role in it, then that's fine with me. That's fine. But there's no moment that you should be advocating for this to go happen to somebody else if you're upset that it happened to Troy Terry. And the notion that this doesn't happen with Deslauriers on the bench is ridiculous, because this moment is unique in its own with the way things were going in the game at that moment. I believe this would have happened no matter what.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, it's an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, right? Like, that's kind of the issue here. Is to your point, it is in so many ways hypocritical. I mean, because really what it is, right, is what we're saying is the only thing that can stop a bad team with a gun is a good team with a gun. Like, it's the same shit, and it's very hard for me to separate sometimes, because there are times where I see hockey as just the world that we live in, and I'm like, yo, dude, there are basic rules. Like, there are basic things that we all agree should or shouldn't happen, and when things get outside of those rules, there needs to be consequences, but we should probably try to keep it from, medieval. And somebody got to my thing that I was looking at last night. We'll get to that. But I also think that there's times where you can't necessarily completely overlay the world's morality or moral structure with sports, because they're different. There is a context to sports that happens that creates a situation in which this shit isn't normal, right? Yeah. Like, perfect example. What was it, Wednesday, I think it was? Maybe Thursday we got the report that a couple of kind of, I don't want to say fights, but especially because of the names involved, but couple of the players on the Ducks were going at each other in practice and got heated. I think one of them was like Steele and Mahura, and then there were like two other guys, and it got heated and they got into it. Everybody who's watching this that isn't a professional athlete, the next time you think one of your coworkers is slacking, I want you to go over there and threaten them to a fist fight and see if your boss goes to the media afterward and goes, hey, he's just a passionate. They're just passionate. They're just passionate. That's all. Look, man, we're all trying to make each other better. Sometimes it gets a little out of hand. I'm not saying I want each other to beat each other up, but at the end of the day, these are guys trying to hold each other accountable. This is them being motivated to win. They don't like that they're on this fucking losing streak. and they're trying to address that, imperfectly or not. No, dude, you're going to go to jail if you go fight Bob in accounting for getting a number wrong. Like, you're going to jail. You can't do that. So I don't always like or feel comfortable with some of the one-for-one comparisons.
Right.
That being said, I 100% understand why you can't have guys going out and running kids for running your kids. The problem there, and to kind of combine these two things, is you can create a perception that you're a team that can be taken advantage of. And whether or not fans want to feel that that's real, whether or not coaches or teams or whatever want to feel, like, that is a thing that exists, right? We saw Timu tweet about it. He was like, we should just go find Ty Domi and protect these kids because I don't like the way these kids are getting pushed around. Timu Solani is not stupid. He's an all-time great. He's one of the best goal scorers in the history of the game, the greatest Finnish player of all time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but again, like we said from the account the other day, Ken Dryden doesn't fucking agree with that either. Ken Dryden thinks this is just a situation that is essentially some form of cultural rot that just creates these happening over and over and over again, where you've just got guys punching each other and then guys hitting kids and then guys punching each other and then guys hitting kids. And, there isn't a consensus about that kind of stuff, but there are guys in this league who will see that and think that teams can get taken advantage of. And that is, I think, the thing, right, where like me and you are a little bit separated on this, and where I kind of come down closer with like Pat and Jay, is I don't ever want to see these kids get taken advantage of simply because the other team knows they don't have a big brother. And that's what bothers me.
Right. I think it's because we
starts a fight, then he starts a fight. Like, Taylor Hall's gotten in a fight. We saw Landeskog, McKinnon. Like, if you ask me, I would love if Trevor Zegras or Troy Terry never got in a fight in their career. I will also tell you, one of my favorite moments as a Ducks fan is watching Timu Solani beat the brakes off of Brad Richards at the end of that Ducks Kings game in like 2014-ish. He beat the brakes off of him. It was Timu Solani's first fight in his entire career. He was like 41 years old at that point. And this is Timu, who played in the fucking 90s and early 2000s when everybody fought. Like, goalies were fighting. You know what I mean? Like, Ray Emery was one of the best enforcers in the league, and he was a goalie. Like, it's, so... I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling. I'm kind of losing myself a little bit here, but I just think it's important to understand that, like, nobody wants these kids to get hurt. Nobody wants someone to go run at Jacob Chikrin. But nobody wants other teams to think it's okay to do it because there won't be repercussions. And that is the part of this where you start to get into some of the dicey area, which is like, if D'Lo is around, does he go run the goalie? Right? Like, is there a thing that he does to set it, and where is the line for what isn't acceptable, right? Like, I remember hearing a story from, I can't think of the name of it, but there's a documentary, like Ice Guardians or something like that. There's a documentary about fighting.
Yeah, I think it's that one.
I think it's Merrick tells a story, or someone tells a story, but basically there was a young guy running around and getting physical and throwing bodies and just being a real asshole. And the enforcer on the other team skated over to the enforcer on his team and looked at him and said, if you don't get him come under control, I'm going to fuck you up. Do you know what the other guy did? He sat the rookie down and said, knock it the fuck off, because I'm not doing this tonight. Yeah. I am not going to get my ass kicked because you're being an asshole. That's the part of this that is real. That's the part of this that matters. There is something to be said. You are not going to go kick someone's ass or try to kick someone's ass or pull some fucking dirty shit if there is someone to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Again, Jay Beagle, the situation with Jay Beagle, I understand your point, and I am regrettably coming to your side a little bit on this one, as far as this feels like an incident that exists outside of that because it's so clearly fucked up, and it is so clearly outside of the course of play. So I 100% understand that, but there is something to be said, I think, that a lot of fans seeing this happen to Troy Terry and being like, and nothing's going to happen now to Jay Beagle. Now, to War 09's comment in our chat, this is something I was looking at last night. 426, Arizona plays Minnesota. You know who plays in Minnesota now? Nick Delorier. You know who I bet you's pretty fucking pissed? Nick Delorier. I would not be surprised if Nick Delorier beats the shit out of Jay Beagle in that game. Do I think it's guaranteed to happen? No, because he's on a new team. He has new responsibilities. He has a responsibility to be the best player he can for the guys on his team right now. Do I think if he can find an excuse that Nick Delorier will break his stick over the back of Jay Beagle's head for fucking up Troy Terry like that? Yeah, I absolutely do. And I think it's justified. I would not have... Honestly, dude, like, this is one of those ones where, again, like my Cro-Magnon, I watch too many mob movies, brain kicks in, because I'm just like, I would start calling guys on other teams. I give you $500 to fuck them up. I'll give you $1,000. I'll wash your car myself. Like, what do you want? I will buy you a popcorn machine, anything. Go fuck this guy up for me, because I can't go do it, and I'm not going to go fight him at an agent's office, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's only so many ways that you can address these kinds of things. And to everybody's credit, if Department of Player Safety isn't going to do it,
that's
the players
the problem.
Have to do it themselves. And
somebody should be doing it, right? We shouldn't be, I think, getting to the point that this has to happen. I'll let you finish because I have a point I want to get into. But
go. You're good.
I just the thing is, I think we get wrapped into this twisted circle where none of us want to see the Stars get hurt. But to not see the Stars get hurt, we then have to have more of these guys who are, in most of the time, doing the play that are making the play that ends up hurting the Stars, right? Like, it's a twisted circle. Nobody wants to see Terry get hurt. Nobody wants to see McDavid, Matthews get hurt. But the rationale to keeping them from getting hurt is to bring more guys in who have the tendency to do that. Like, that's the problem is... How are we ever... And if the league and player safety aren't going to hold guys accountable, then we're stuck in this loop where none of us want to see guys get hurt, but we want to see our guy hurt another guy. Like, that's the problem for me as we get into this loop. And, like, listen, I get the problem. Like, the problem when I get into some of these arguments, there's a lot of people who you can't... I'm on both sides in the sense I see the value of an enforcer. And from a blanket start of the game, this guy is there. You maybe don't do something. I agree with that. I can see that. I know if I'm playing a game and there's this guy over who I know can fuck me up, I'm probably not going to touch that guy or any of the other guys that will get me in trouble with this guy. So I can see that for sure. I 100% understand that. But it like to then go out there and say, like, in this situation, I don't think it would matter, and I don't think you really need this guy. There's other ways to go about it. Like, that is my thought process with that. But if you get an argument where immediately me saying that means I don't like fighting and I don't like enforcers and whatever. I think there's a middle ground you can go about this where you can get guys who can do that, guys like Tanner Jeannot and others that do something else that also can provide that same protection to your star players. And then you actually get the league and the refs to step up and work towards actually protecting the Stars in this league so that you don't need to have more guys who will actually do that to other star players. Like, we don't want to see Stars get hurt, so why do we want our guy to then go fuck up their star player because their guy messed up our star player? That's the problem I have, is because we get sucked into this circle here where none of us want to see guys get hurt, but if our guy gets hurt, well, now that guy has to get hurt. And then we never get out of it because it's just like a recurring circle because these are the guys hurting the star players. And for us to feel okay, we now need our guy to go mess up their star player.
Right.
And there used to be an era where, like you had mentioned, like the rookie was running around being a little bit too wild. The enforcer came to their enforcer and said, listen, I'm going to fuck you up. Not him. I'm going to fuck you up if he doesn't cut it out. And we got to this area where no, we're targeting these guys now. These guys are hurting us. Like, they're that skilled. I'm going to target this guy. And there's a lot of guys who won't do that. Reeves won't do that. I don't think Delory would do that. Like, there are guys who have that code still in them that they won't target the star player. The problem is there's not a lot of those guys left, so you just have to go out, and if you want an enforcer, get a guy who can fight and hit, and there's a lot of them out there who will target the star player to be able to do something, to have an impact on the game. And with that number dwindling, you're getting a lot of those guys in there. We're coming across this problem where, yeah, there's some good enforcers in this league. Guys who will not go out and do that. Like I said, Reeves and Delory and others who won't do that. But you have a lot of them who will. And you have to be able to split that and understand that, like, we don't need the guys who are doing that. We can keep the guys who are. But realistically, if we get rid of the guys who are doing that, do you need the guys who are there to protect the star players? If we're protecting the star players in other ways, do I need Delory on my bench if all he's there to do is protect the star players?
Yes.
Like,
no, but I know you're 100% right. It's funny because, the thing I was thinking about when you were talking about that is Brian Burke made comment when he was in Toronto where he went on like some tirade because somebody hit one of the Toronto skill players, and he just lost his shit about it. And he was like, I got Colt Moore on my team. He goes, I have to keep him in the minors because he can't find an honest fight out there, right? Like, I don't have room for him on my team to protect my guys because all these other guys are like Antoine Roussel types.
Yeah.
Where they're not heavyweights. They're probably not even middleweights. A lot of them don't actually want to fight, but they are willing to go in and do that slick shit and try to slew foot or hurt guys or whatever. And he's like, Colt Moore is a good kid. He would go out there. He's going to play the right way. Again, Matt Martin, right, is another guy like this that if you're looking, like, I just like if you put together, if you got Stu Grimson, Matt Martin, I think Bob Probert passed away, so I can't say him. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you could just get the 35-year-old versions of all of these guys, right? And you ask them and you go, all right, is what Jay Beagle did okay? No. Who should have to pay? Jay Beagle. Right. What if you can't get to him? Now we have a problem, right? Like, I just think, to your point, we have seen the game get so fast and so skilled that the guys who can
they got to find a way to stick around.
The guys who can operate within the system that everyone semi-agrees with, right? And this is why I said it's kind of like, the Cro-Magnon mob movie part of my brain, right? Because, like, in mob movies, they're always like, the word they use is civilians, right? They're all like, nobody in this game didn't know what they were getting into, right? Like, I remember there's an episode early in The Sopranos where Tony talks about that. He's talking to Melfi, and he's just like, we all know what we got into. This is a very specific thing. You do not go outside of it. You do not involve people that have nothing to do with it. That's not how this works. But if you're in this, there are consequences that exist outside of the normal realm of behavior. And I think that's the part of it for a lot of people that is very frustrating. And to Pat's credit, I thought he made a really great point when I think it was Friedman tweeted out that Department of Player Safety said there was not going to be any looking into the Jay Beagle incident. And Pat, he hit it right on the head. He said, of course there's not. That's not what they want. They want the players to police this themselves. The league has decided, GMs, NHLPA, whatever, everybody has a vested interest in not having the Department of Player Safety be the stick in the stick and carrot with the league. And I get why people get frustrated. I get why it's infuriating to see Nick Ritchie probably rightfully get a game for smacking Kevin Shattenkirk in the head, but Jay Beagle doesn't even get a phone call for punching Troy Terry in the face multiple times. Like, I get why that's infuriating, and I get why people want to blame the Department of Player Safety, and I don't want to say that they don't have some level of culpability, because they do have the ability, to try to make an impact. But at the same time, I think we need to admit that they are handcuffed by the GMs and by the NHLPA from actually being able to make substantive changes or deal out the type of suspensions and fines and punishments that can maybe actually stop this. Like somebody said it the other day, like we need to stop calling them, they were fined $5,000, saying that, just being like they weren't punished. I understand that point, but it kind of annoys me, because it's like, but that's what they're allowed to do. Like, that's the punishment. You can say it's not a real punishment because these guys are making these guys are making $2-3 million a year, or even guys on, baby contracts or two-way contract stuff. They're making like $750K, whatever you want to say. Like, I get that $5,000 out of that is not a significant amount of money, but that's all that they're allowed to do. They can only do these things, and so if you're going to get mad at them for having handcuffs put on them while they're trying to do this, you have to start looking at who put the handcuffs on them. And that, for me, is the part of this that is so infuriating, is the GMs and the NHLPA refuse to address this internally. There are more guys in the NHLPA who have something in common with Troy Terry than have something in common with Jay Beagle.
Yep.
Everybody talks about hockey-related revenue and escrow and money are we losing and all this stuff, and how do we get more money into the league? How do we grow revenue? How do we grow the game? You know what part of that is not having guys like Troy Terry have to miss 5 games because he literally can't see out of one eye.
Yeah.
Because Jay Beagle punched him in the face. That's how you increase revenue. Get these games where the fighting and the physicality accentuates the skill and the speed and the creativity of these players, as opposed to actively detracting from it. I have been very clear on this. I don't think fighting is something that needs to be run out of the game as far as rules. I don't think it's something that needs to be run out of the game as far as getting certain types of, like, certain players, right? Like, I love that Ryan Reeves is still in this league, and I fucking love that the Rangers are good and Vegas sucks after Reeves walked out the door. That makes me so happy. And I say this as someone who spent a significant amount of my time hating Ryan Reeves because he was Peros for the Blues when we had Peros. Like, I love those guys. Stu Grimson was one of my favorite players. Like, this is something I was thinking about the other day, watching Wayne Simmons whip someone's ass. There's no middleweights anymore, dude. Ian LaPerriere, there's not a guy like that anymore who's, 6 foot 180 maybe on a good day, and who will absolutely make you look stupid. Ian LaPerriere had one 20-goal season in his entire career. One of my all-time favorite depth players. Talk to guys on his teams, whether it's Philly, the Kings, Colorado, those guys loved LaPerriere. And it's not just because he was willing to fight, but it's because the way in which that fighting came out of his game was a reflection of him playing an honest, hard game. These kinds of terms that we hear, like old hockey men, your 200 hockey men, or old heads or veterans, or whatever you want to talk about. That stuff is real. Like, this idea of it, like, again, John Tortorella talking about an honest game. That's a moral thing to him, right? He's this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep everything simple. We're going to play as a team, blah, 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 blah. There's an elegant simplicity and sincerity that I think exists to that idea. The problem is a lot of people in this league are players that aren't abiding by those rules, and the GMs won't let anybody make them punt. Like, the GMs won't let anybody hold them accountable except for other players. And like you said, what you end up in is a situation of cyclical violence where star players are getting hurt because these guys are coming. Like, Zach Ronaldo should never see the NHL again.
Yeah, for every Nick Deslauriers, you have a Zach Ronaldo. That is brought into the league by a GM in hopes that they are going to protect their star players, but then he is out there doing this to other star players. And that's the problem to me, is if you have said as a league you want to protect your star players, but the way you go about it is saying it needs to be policed by the players. So the GM say, okay, we need to go out and get a guy. And not everybody's a Reeves or a Delorier. Some of them are Ronaldos and guys like that, where, they're up there for a reason. They want to stay there. They want to make NHL money. The way they stay up there is fighting, hitting, being physical. And a lot of times those guys don't have this morality where I'm not going to go and hunt this guy. I'm going to go make a name for myself. I'm going to go after their top guy, and I'm going to hurt him. And that's not right, but that's the problem you get into when you say the only way we're going to handle this is we're going to let the players police it, because not everybody is going to follow the rules. And you need to now have either some way to do it both ways, where you reward the guys who do it properly, the enforcers who go after the other enforcer and fight to set a tone and to let guys know, like, this isn't going to happen anymore. Like, these guys rumbled, that's it. And a way to weed out the guys that shouldn't be here and are doing this. And there's no effort from the league to do that. It's why we're stuck in this trap where we all hate that the Stars get injured, but the way we deal with it is bringing in more guys who injured the Stars. That's the problem. And, like, from the beginning, I've tried to say, and it's hard to be on this side of the argument and not get labeled as anti-fight or soft or whatever. I have nothing wrong or nothing against Nick Delorier. I loved him when he was here. I thought he played the game the right way. I thought he filled his role as a responsible enforcer well, and he protected this team. I have nothing against him. What he brought to the game other than that wasn't much. There were times they didn't need him to be that guy, but he was in the lineup to be that guy.
Just get rid of his hat trick. Yeah, whatever, dude. We know you hate him.
No, but to say that, it just blends into the problem for me at the end of the day. And it, like, I am firmly on both sides with different parts of it. I think fighting has a place in a certain way, but the problem is the system is broken right now that that they're all lumped together, right? And if I don't know the solution. I'm not going to sit here and say I know the solution, but there's some sort of middle ground out there where there's a way to weed these guys out, where the guys like Reeves and Delorier can still be here for the odd situation where, a knee-on-knee hit happens, a dumb play happens where a guy makes a bad hit from behind. Doesn't have a history of it. Wasn't out there to injure a guy, but whatever. He messes up one of your star players. Now Delorier is going to go out and fight their guy, their actual enforcer, one of their top guys, or the guy who did it. That I'm fine with. That type of retribution I'm fine with. And I don't think that that's an accidental thing. It's the problem is when you have these guys, the Ronaldos and others, Cassians in some sense, who come in and target a guy for no other reason, just to target their star player, and leads to extra violence for other star players after that. And I know we could talk about this all day, but I think that's where the problem comes for me. I don't know what the solution is. The league has to step in somehow and figure that solution, because if they are as adamant as they are about saying they want to fix this issue and protect star players, well, your answer can't be to bring more guys in that are going to do the damage, right? And I'm not saying, I'll keep repeating this all day. I'm not saying let's take fighting out of the game. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think the NHL thinks that's the answer, but there's got to be something here that you can do to mitigate this and filter out the good ones from the bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only, just thinking about it right now, the only thing that I can think of, because CJ, I think it was CJ made the comment that fighting doesn't stop this shit, suspensions do. I don't think that's necessarily true. I understand what he's saying, that you start costing these guys significant amounts of money, especially for these kinds of guys, right? Where you have guys like Jay Beagle, who maybe isn't making, Jay Beagle's a bad example because he's on that terrible $3 million contract he got from not Brad Treliving. What's his name? Who's the idiot who just got fired in Vancouver?
Oh God. I don't remember his name. Wow.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
He'll have another job in 6 months and we'll have to know his name again. But, I think what you need is to hold the organizations accountable.
Yeah.
To me, some of this shit should cost the organization money. Find the coach, find the GM, find the owner. Just talk draft picks, bro.
Give them a reason why they will not bring these guys around.
I get that everybody wants to say 5th and 6th round picks at very little value relative, right? Like I think I was looking at it a couple years ago. The 5th round pick who had played the most games at one point was Derek Grant. Like he was the most successful 5th round pick kind of to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
And you've always got Josh Mansons and Mark Stones and all those guys, Pavel Datsyuk and these guys Troy Terry, another great mid to late round pick who, those stories are awesome. Take those picks away.
The punishments need to hurt. Like they need to hurt for there to be a difference.
And they need to hurt the organization because again, it's one of those things where I remember hearing a story in the NBA. Now again, rosters are smaller, so it's a little different. But there was a story in the NBA where a veteran got in a fight on the court in the 80s. And a bunch of young kids that were just rookies or second and third year guys on the team ran in and just start throwing down with him and had his back. They go into the locker room after him and he looks at him and he goes, "I'm going to cover your fines. You guys did the right thing. You do not make enough money. I'm going to cover your fines." That's somewhat of a bad example because it's him making an argument for supporting his guys for doing the right thing. But it is also a thing where these players are invested in each other majority of the time. They will help each other out when they can, assuming everybody doesn't fucking hate them, like apparently Travis Hamonic. But you have to hurt the GM. To me, that should cost who is it? It's not Bill Zito because he's in Florida. It's the other guy.
Armstrong?
Yeah, Bill Armstrong. He should lose money for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Or King is the coach, right? He should lose money for that game. Your job is to control these guys. And control is a very dicey word because it's adults and it's a job and things like that. But, that's your job. Your job is to get these guys to be, again, you get into weird paternal language and it's always kind of uncomfortable for me. But fundamentally what your job is to do is to get these guys to play the way you want them to play. So I have to assume whatever they do is a reflection of you. And if you're going to condone this behavior, then I'm going to make you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to hurt because this guy either did what you asked, which is a problem, or he won't listen to you, which is also a problem. If you can't keep your guys in your organization from making mistakes or hurting other people, that's on you. At the end of the day, you are the leader of this organization. You are the leader of these rosters. You are the one who is going to have to pay. And since, like we talked about earlier, it doesn't seem to be that much anymore where I can go make your enforcer pay for you being an asshole, and then you have to answer to him, they have to go to management.
Yeah.
Because there just isn't a fundamental structure right now on ice to handle these types of things.
Yeah.
That's why Tom Wilson is a problem, because Tom Wilson's really good. He's really big, and he has, I think, no moral compass. I don't think he has a single, he might be a sociopath, right? He might just not have human emotion. He might just be oh, it's a guy, punch, whatever. He doesn't give a shit. That's why they needed Reeves in New York. Didn't need, whatever. They needed someone in their eyes who was physically capable of dealing with him. There aren't a lot of guys that can do it, that can also play the minutes Tom Wilson plays. Zdeno Chara hasn't been that guy in 5 years because he's 400 years old, and Zdeno Chara is one of the baddest men in the world. You know what I mean? This is the part of this that gets messy, and I think, to be honest, I think me and you have kind of come to a consensus that the problem is the league isn't doing anything to handle this, which is leading to people trying to handle this internally, which is leading to more and more of these guys coming into the league who don't have an appreciation or a healthy respect for their fellow players to do this within some sense of a code of decency or a code of conduct. And that's the part of this that makes so many people frustrated, especially older fans.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if it's fucking not true, let me be very clear. You could 100% tell me that this is cherry-picked nostalgia, and I wouldn't really say you're wrong just because that's how these things work. We hold on to things that, that fit with something or have an impact on us. But it felt like back then, in the 90s, even the 80s, even in the early 2000s, you didn't get away with this shit, man. Like, in the playoffs, Brad May voluntarily, knowing he was going to get suspended, jumped a dude for trying to fight Kent Huskins. I think it was the Shark series. Somebody went after Kent Huskins. Kent Huskins was never fighting anybody. He was a sweetheart, fourth defenseman. That's just what he was. He was just a nice guy. And Brad May saw somebody trying to fight him, and Brad May said no, and got suspended in the playoffs because he knew the right thing to do was to keep those guys off of Kent Huskins. He's not the guy you go after, bro. You want to wrestle or whatever, that's fine, but you're not getting my guy in a fucking fight because you're an asshole. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to get suspended, but I'm going to beat your ass for 5 minutes before these refs get me off of you. And again, it's violence begets violence. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, and we end up in this situation where everybody's mad and nobody agrees. Mm-hmm. But the answer feels semi-easy, which is the people in charge need to fucking grow up.
Yeah, but it just feels like they'll never do it. It's like you got to go after the guys who are bringing these guys in to solve this problem that everybody says they want to solve. And when they make a mistake, hold them accountable. If they bring in the wrong guy who does it the wrong way, that's their fault. It's not necessarily the guy who did it's fault. Like, yeah, it is. He did that. It's hit. But finding him $5,000, which ultimately might be covered by players or the owner or whoever, at the end of the day, you won't ever see it really come out. It's not really going to affect them too much anyway, where it's not a deterrent to not go do it again, especially if that's their only way to stick in the NHL is to do stuff like that. You've got to go after the guy who brought him in, be like, listen, this isn't cool. This isn't going to work. We're finding you this time. It's going to keep going up every time this guy or somebody like him does it. And eventually the GM's going to be like, listen, man, you're not sticking with the team if you're going to keep doing this shit because it's hurting me. Mm-hmm. And then presumably it dies out. That's what you hope for, right? It's like you get all these guys out of here that, eventually it comes up every now and then. You bring the wrong guy in. You get punished for it. It happens, whatever. It's never going to completely go away. But he's gone. He's gone after that. GM's like, listen, it's costing me this, money, draft picks, whatever. You're not sticking around. I can understand CJ's suspension argument because I could see that being more realistic. Like, listen, just suspend the guy 5-10 games, and he won't do it again if he wants to play hockey. Especially these guys that struggle to get in the lineup anyway. Mm-hmm. I can see that. I don't know, like you said, if that's really the answer. I think the answer is punishing the guys who are bringing in these players, because then hopefully you just stop it completely, and right. they aren't bringing in these guys, because if you just punish the player, suspend him for 10 games, Jim was just going to bring in another guy to fill that guy's hole that could be just as bad, right? So I think ultimately you've got to punish the guys who are making those decisions, building these teams and bringing these guys in, and maybe it's a combination of both to put some blame on the players as well. I think there is a median you can kind of fall in at some point. I just don't think they'll do it.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say on this, and then you can say anything you want, and then we can move on to things that aren't fucking annoying and irritating regardless of how you feel about them, is it's important to acknowledge coaches are always going to make mistakes. GMs are always going to make mistakes. They're going to misread guys. We see them do it with talent, right? Mm-hmm. Where you see these guys that are incredibly talented. They come up for 1,000 different reasons, right? They don't make the league. They don't have the impact you're expecting. It happens. So I think it is always worth remembering that these guys on the other end of this, right, as far as like the physical fighting kind of code types, you're going to just find guys who are just loose cannons. You're going to find guys who aren't right. But as long as you can hold the organizations accountable when those guys pop off, you're going to start to see these things happen less and less, because the GMs are going to have to make better decisions. They're going to have to make more educated decisions. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about it. If not, then there was one other thing we wanted to get to, I think, before we got out of here.
Which was what?
The who's going to replace Dallas Eakins?
Yeah, I want to get into that. I want to spend a decent amount of time on it. That's the problem. So B. Bordy just asked a chat. Thanks for coming out, first time viewer and first time question in the chat. I want to answer that. I think it warrants a longer discussion than five minutes. Like, we've only got a couple of minutes here before I've got to wrap. I don't think it does the question justice to just kind of dive into it for 5 minutes, because we were going to talk about the fact that in 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman suggested that Bruce Boudreau might not be back in Vancouver. It's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to go back. And I think it was Jake from Crash the Pond who put out a Twitter poll about, would you welcome Bruce Boudreau back in Anaheim? So we were going to talk about that. And I think that goes in with that question on who do you think will be the Ducks' new head coach. So I would push it. I want to cover that. Be patient. We will cover it on the next show so we can give it, the question a little bit more justice than a 5-minute answer. So we'll get into that. We were going to also talk about the trade deadline acquisitions and how they've done. So we'll talk about that a bit next week as well. Dive in how Zach Aston-Reese, Dominic Simone, Vakanainen's played a couple games now. So give them a few more. They've played at least 5 each by the time we get to this next week, and we'll analyze how they've done a little bit. But I guess the only thing we have left is just quick predictions for the upcoming games this week, including tonight. And
so here's how I want to do that.
Okay.
Because I was looking at it the other day as far as like point percentage and where Anaheim is in the point standings versus the percentage standings, because I think they're still technically like 3rd or 4th from the bottom in the Pacific by points, but they're 2nd from the bottom in points percentage. And I was looking at it, and with 13 games left at the 410 point percentage, or the 41% points percentage rate that they were at, if they just played the string out at that, they were going to fail to hit 80 points. So my question to you is, with 12 games left, and what do they have to be at now? 70. They have to be at what, 68 points?
I think they're at 68. Yep.
Do you think the Ducks
500?
Yeah, basically, can they play 500? Do you think they can get to 80 points?
Well, I was going to say they were going to lose 3 of these games against Edmonton, Calgary, and Carolina. A chance they beat Philly. You go after that to having to play Florida, Tampa, Los Angeles twice, St. Louis, and Dallas. I think there's a chance they don't. I really think they don't. I think the winnable games are Philadelphia, Columbus, and San Jose. And the other ones, you're either playing desperate playoff teams for seedings, or even in a position like Edmonton and Calgary. You're playing some of the top teams in the league 3 in a row against Carolina, Florida, and Tampa on the road. That's going to be a nightmare. And you've got to play LA twice, and they're fighting for a playoff spot. And then Dallas on the last game of the season. That might be a given, but the way they're trending right now, they are likely going to be fighting for a playoff spot to the very end. That game could mean a lot for them. So I don't think they do. I think winning 6 out of 12 against the teams they have to go against and some of the road trips they have, I think is going to be very hard. I don't think they hit 80 points, which sucks, but...
Yeah, I mean, like I pointed out on Twitter, it would be the first time they haven't hit 80 points in 3 consecutive seasons since the first 3 seasons they were in the league. 2 of those are truncated seasons, so there's something a little bit weird about that. I might have to do some
points percentage math or whatever.
Yeah. Some
what they were,
see where they were over a full season, but it's very, very interesting. I don't think they hit 80 either. I think you're right. I think they played too many teams with too much to lose in this stretch, and I think ultimately what we'll see is they'll come up short. I think they'll finish, 75 points ish.
Yeah,
that's probably right around where I would have them, which is a bummer. But again, at this point in time, like we've said, beginning of the year, what we're hoping for: Calder Trophy, Calder Cup, lottery win. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that we went into this year looking for. And as much as this year had points where we thought we might have a little bit higher aspirations than that, it's been what we've thought. It's come right back down to earth, and this is the team that you can see pieces moving forward. And we're I'm sure once the season wraps, we're going to have all sorts of fascinating conversations about what it is Pat Verbeek's going to go into. I think I said this on the trade deadline show. Like, I haven't been this excited for the draft in a while, and not even because of the pick, but because of the context. Like, I just don't know what Verbeek is going to do, and I'm fascinated to see what that is. Something is going to happen, I feel like, one way or the other. And whatever it is, I'm very much looking forward to it.
All right. Well, that was fun. I like that one. I knew this one was going to be interesting with all the stuff that happened, so thanks. I'm not going to say. I was about to say thanks to Jay Beagle for giving us something to talk about, but fuck Jay Beagle, so no.
A life.
Yeah. But no, that was great. Good discussion. I know it's a topic on a lot of people's minds tonight, but it'll be fun. Hopefully nothing like that happens tonight, and we can just watch a fun hockey game with Edmonton in town. Yeah, it's in Anaheim, right? So McDavid and Draisaitl is going to be a tough game. Vander Kane, so that's never a good thing to watch him play against the Ducks. He had a history of...
Let me just say, I would like to personally say that as far as hurting star players goes, everyone agrees there's an exception for Evander Kane.
Fair enough. I will agree with that. But it'll be a fun one tonight to watch. I think it's
that's one word for it.
Yeah, it'll be, hopefully. God. It'll be fun to watch Zegras. Hopefully Terry's in. I haven't heard anything if he's going to be in or not. I'd imagine probably not.
Honestly, at this point, I'm fine sitting him. He hit 30 goals. The kid's a stud. He's a star. There are still parts of me that is trying not to get too far ahead of myself and appreciate that next year the results could look a little different because of the 1,000 different factors that led to him popping off this year. But there's every reason to think he is this guy going forward, and that's incredibly exciting. And at this point, he has nothing to fucking prove to anybody, and the best thing the organization can do is just let him heal.
If he can play, he can play. If he can't, then he can't. So but that will do it for today. Enjoy the game tonight, guys. Appreciate everybody who came out live and anybody listening after the fact. We'll be back, I think, likely next weekend. Hopefully, we're hoping that we can set it up. I know Pat and Jay have been wanting to get back on. We've been just trying to find a time that works for everybody where they can jump back on. So hopefully next weekend. I know we're coming near to the end of the season here. We've got a few things planned, like our prospect update and a few other shows. So we'll be having those on the way as well. But at least for now, enjoy the game tonight. Stay tuned for next weekend. We'll be back, and we'll catch you guys then. Take care.
My dog hates me. I'm going to go cry. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.